Okay, now this is just a quick demonstration of how the screen-tight system works. Now screen-tight comes with two main components that are used to install the screen. One of those components is the screen-tight base that looks like this. It's kind of a black or a dark brown piece of plastic and has some mounting holes in it, as you can see here. And you can drill other holes into it if you need to. Now, the screen-tight base is the piece that actually performs the function of holding the screen in place in the frame. So in this small mock-up that I've done here, you can see this screen-tight base is installed on all four sides with these screws that are screwed into the wooden frame. The other main component of the screen-tight system is this called the screen-tight cap. And this is where this is functional and structural. This is decorative. And what happens is after you install the screen in the frame using the screen-tight base, then you take this piece of screen-tight cap and you can see how it kind of fits right in the grooves of the screen-tight base, and you snap it in there and it provides a decorative cover to the screen-tight base, so it hides all the details of the screws and the channels and everything else that's part of the base. So, as I just said, the screen-tight base has these channels in it, and these channels, along with the spline that I'll get to in just a minute, these channels are used to hold the screen in place and to make sure that the screen remains tight during and after the installation. So if you look at this mock-up, what I've done is I've installed a screen, a fiberglass screen, identical to this stuff, and I've installed it on three sides of this mock-up, and I've left the one side unfinished here, so I'll show you how the screen-tight product is used to actually install this screen. So I talked about these two pieces here, the base and the cap. The other component of the screen-tight system is this spline. This is a rubbery, kind of a small tubular piece of plastic, and the thickness specified for screen-tight is to use this 0.175 inch spline that fits in or is forced in to the channels of the screen-tight base in order to hold the screen in place. So here's the process that is used to actually mount the screen. Like I said, three sides of this have already been installed. So what I'm going to do is, in order to install this last side of the screen, I'm going to take some of this spline, I'm going to measure it out approximately, it doesn't have to be exact, to span or cover the width of the screen in this particular place. So I'm going to use these little snips here to just snip off a piece of the spline. And another thing I'm going to use is a product called a screen mouse. Now, you can use a spline tool like this to force the spline into the channels of the screen-tight base if you want to, and this will work pretty well, but I have found that this product is called a screen mouse is much easier to use. With the normal spline tool, you have to grip it with your hands, maybe push with your thumb, and it can be a little challenging and a little bit of a strain on your hands and your fingers and your arms to do this. But the mouse, the screen mouse, this is not a screen-tight product, by the way. This is separate from screen-tight. The mouse allows you to put your palm on the top of the mouse and use a little bit more pressure. And if you have to, depending on your orientation, you can actually use some of your body weight. Not that it's totally necessary, but you can use some of your body weight to help apply pressure to the installation process. So what you do is with this mouse is, well, first of all, let me set the mouse aside for just a second. One of the things you have to do is get the spline started in the edge of the channel. So there's the channel right there in this sample that I have here. So you get the spline inserted into the channel at the where you want the screen to install, and it'll force this piece of the screen down into the channel. So you put the spline in place, leave a little bit of an overlap right there. And this is the only time when I typically use the handheld, sort of the typical traditional spline tool, just to get the spline started in the groove. So you force it down there into the groove of the screen tight base. And then you take the mouse, in this case this is my preferred weapon for installing the screen, and I feed it into the side that's labeled F. You probably can't see that, but there's a little F right there and a little B right there, front and back. Now the screen mouse instructions say to feed it excuse me, into the back, but I can't get that to work. So I feed it into the front side of the mouse. It comes out the back here. Don't know if you can see that. So there's the spline coming out the back. And this basically allows you to self-feed the spline into the groove and use the screen mouse to install the spline into the groove of into the channel of the screen tight base. And what you do is you basically give the screen just a little bit of a tug with your hand to keep it tight, and you just roll the spline into the channel of the screen tight base. And if you want to, you can put the back wheel of the mouse down there to kind of help force the spline down in there. And you roll the spline all the way in, and when you're done, the screen is installed, the spline is in the channel, and the screen is held tightly in place by the combination of the spline in the channel. So this is a very small sample, so it's very easy to get this tight, but this is extremely tight. I have used this system to install screen on a section that was 80 inches by about 65 inches. Typically, people would consider that a very large screen panel. And when I've used the screen tight system to do it, the screen panel has gone in extremely tightly. So much so tight that sometimes I think when I'm installing it, it's going to rip the screen. It's so tight, but it's held in place. It hasn't torn, it hasn't ripped, and it's a really reliable way to install screen in a small or a large panel. Make sure it's very tight. Okay, so the last part of the process for installing the screen tight system, a screen using a screen tight system, is to clip off the excess spline that's sticking out the end here. So I'm going to use this small, it's kind of a wire snip to snip off that last piece of spline right there. I'll just force that down in there, being careful not to poke the screen. And here's a larger piece here sticking out of the spline, so I'll just snip that off and force that down into the channel. So now the screen is installed on all four sides, the spline is in. The only thing that's left to be done is to trim off this excess screen that's on the edge here. And that's pretty easy to do. Let me get some reading glasses to make sure I don't poke a hole in the screen. So all you do is you very carefully with a utility knife just kind of shave off the edge right along the edge of the channel of the screen, being careful not to tear the screen that you've just installed, and cut off the loose ends, and that's it. That's basically how the screen tight system works. The only thing left to do is to install the decorative cap on the top. Now this of course doesn't fit all the way. It's going pretty close right here. And the way you do that is you typically, if necessary, you can install it by hand by just pressing it in, but sometimes it's better to have a rubber mallet. You put the screen tight cap over the channel, line up, see if you can see this, you line up the grooves of the screen tight base with these little teeth that stick out on the screen tight cap. You line that up, and once you've got it aligned, then you simply tap it in place. Just get it in the groove and just knock it down into place. So when you're finished, on all four sides, all of the screen tight base is covered by this decorative cap. And when we go back to the video that shows the way the porch screen has been done, you'll notice this white screen tight cap that outlines the frame for all the screen panels. And that's basically it. It's a pretty simple process, and it goes in very reliably. So that's the way the screen tight system works.